Hi friends, welcome to a new Digitone and Digitakt tutorial, and this time I want to talk about the quite common issue of getting from one loop or pattern to a finished jam or song. Now, I've been writing a lot of music lately, and in this process I often ran into the issue that I had a loop that I was really happy with and that I really liked, and then continuously added elements to this loop, but from there on didn't really know how to arrange a full jam or how to proceed from there. And I think I'm not the only one struggling with this issue, so I thought of 6 tips that really helped me to get out of this problem and get to one loop, or from being stuck in a loop to a full jam that I could perform live, or to an arrangement of a full song. First of all, I think there is no general solution for this problem, but I found that for me really helped that I created pattern variations that I could then use and rearrange, and out of these variations create new parts of the song or the jam that I could then arrange in a finished song. So let me get to the diggies and show you the 6 tips how to escape the problem of being stuck in a loop. Here we are at the diggies, and let's start with tip number 1, which is change chord progressions. This example that I want to show you here is from a new jam that I'm currently working on and will release very soon. And here in this first pattern, we have an 8-bar loop with 2 different chords. Let me just play the melodic elements, which sounds like this. Here is the second chord, and this then continues to loop. But if I proceed through the jam until here, pattern number 4, you will hear now that the chord progression continues. So here we again have the first loop. Sorry, not loop, but chord. Here is the second chord. And now it continues to another different chord, and now even to a 4th chord. So I decided to build towards this pattern by creating pattern variations that have limited chord progressions, like the first one that I showed you, and less melodic elements to slowly make the song evolve towards the full progression of 4 chords in this pattern number 4. A very effective technique to keep the song interesting throughout the whole jam. Now, tip number 2 is using different effect and parameter settings. And herefore I have another jam that I created, and here I used different energy levels with different parameter settings in the pattern to make the jam evolve. I think most obvious this is with these 4 tracks here, which are tracks 1 to 4 on the Digitone. And when I start here with the filter, you can see here in the first pattern that the filter is quite closed. Now we're going, for example, to the second pattern. You can see the filter here opening more up. And now in pattern number 3, which has the most energy, you could say, the filter here with this arp is nearly completely open. And with this one here, even also even more open. So you can play a lot with different parameter settings. What I really also like to do is when I now add, for example, also the other elements, you can make the energy or reduce the energy by going here into the amp page and then holding track to control all. And then reduce the decay time. Let's do it here on the Digitone as well. Let's do it even more. Until the kick is nearly gone. And then you could, for example, reload the patterns and bring the energy of all the elements back. Also pretty effective just to try it out, and then of course with these different parameter settings, save the pattern that you just manipulated to a new pattern, and then continue to arrange the jam from there. Now, tip number 3 is a little similar to the previous one, and it is to change LFO settings of a sound to make it sound different. So here we have a jam in a pattern in bank E, and there I created variations of chord progressions, but I'm changing the sounds to create different vibes. So basically here on these Digitone tracks again, in the beginning here, I have a melody that hides behind a very glitchy LFO that you can see here. It's on the synth pitch with the random wave shape, and the depth is all the way up. And throughout the jam, when I, for example, continue now to pattern 2, you can really hear that there's a melody coming in. So basically this is the start with all the elements. Just remains on one sound or on one chord, but then when I change to pattern number 2, you can really hear that there is a melody coming in. Now, and you can see here for on track number 4, for example, this is basically the same melodic element, but here the depth of the LFO number 2 on the synth pitch is reduced to or just very slightly on the pitch, but not that it affects the sound and adds this glitchiness. So this is a really nice way to have some elements kind of hidden in your jam and then introduce them in the next pattern as you proceed, and therefore create interest. Tip number 4 is to change melodies and or sounds on different tracks throughout the jam. So therefore I have this example here again from my new jam that I'm currently working on. And here on track 6 and 7, I'm using different sounds throughout the whole jam. So basically, we're starting with this plug sound in pattern number 1. Then we have in pattern 2, only shortly the lead coming in, which will be introduced later. And then also the plug sound. Then here on pattern 3, we have it opening more up and playing more melodic elements. And then on pattern 4, it changes completely to these lead sounds. And with changing the sounds on your tracks throughout the patterns, but staying or sticking basically to the same melody, you can create a lot of variation and therefore move from the loop that you created in the beginning to totally different sonic or ambient parts of the song, you could basically say, and create interest while listening to it. So you can stick to the same melody. Here I had a slight variation in it, but even with sticking to the same melody, you can create a lot of interest and therefore make the song or jam that you work on more interesting. Now, tip number 5 is quite an obvious one, which is muting elements. This is quite underestimated how much you can change the vibe of a pattern when you remove elements from it and then slowly bring them in order to create interest. Let me show you that by that example. This is, by the way, from my first Digitakt and Digitone jam that I made here on the channel. If you want to watch the whole jam, I link it up here. But here I just started with the kick on track 1, the closed hi-hats on track 3, then some additional percussive elements on track 8, and the bass here on track number 9. And this was basically the beginning of this jam, and then I can slowly, by playing this, introduce some more elements like this. Or now even add some more melodic elements. Like this, for example. And you can really see that right now the overall vibe of the jam totally changed. And I think this is particularly more interesting when you move to a pattern where there's a lot more going on. So let's basically say here, in the last pattern, I would just have the bass and the kick playing, which sounds like this. Is a lot less energy, for example, than compared when all the sounds are playing. So this is a very nice way to also add variation inside your jam. And from a very energetic point come to a point where there is a lot less energy, like I did right now. So you can also, I just did this in basically one pattern, but you can also from when you have the loop that you created and copy and paste it, and then really see what of a difference it makes if you remove certain elements, and then see how these elements with a reduced energy work in the whole song structure. Now, tip number 6 is adding ear candy. The diggies make it basically very easy to add little elements that will only appear once in a pattern or with a specific chance, or just when you're in fill mode, for example. So when here in this jam, we look into the sequencer on track number 5, you can see here for the trick conditions that there are a lot of tricks that, for example, have here a 50% chance to be played. Here again 50%. This one plays every time. And then in the end you also have here a 4 out of 4 condition, a 1 out of 2 condition, and a 2 out of 4 condition. So that the track basically all the time evolves and changes. And you can see that these elements play at different intervals, sometimes in every loop, sometimes only every 4 out of 4, so that the track is basically continuously changing and adds interest to the whole jam. You can just hear it very slightly in the background, but therefore you have a loop that is not really static, so you don't have the same 4-bar loop, you can basically say, playing every time, but it's continuously changing. And then when you stay into this loop for longer, or you use some of the other tips that I shared with you for your song context, you keep the interest up, and you have different elements coming in every time. It's not all the time like the same static loop, but it keeps evolving all the time. And this adds, of course, a lot of interest, and this way sets this pattern apart from other patterns that you have in your song. And that wraps up my 6 tips that I use to get from one pattern or loop to different pattern variations, and out of these create a new jam or song. By the way, if you are wondering what equipment I'm using, or if you want to listen to some of my music that I created this way, you can find all the links to that down in the video description. And at this point, I just want to say a huge thanks to every one of you guys supporting my channel, liking, subscribing, commenting these videos. It really, really means a lot to me. Till then, yeah, I'm looking forward to see you in the next video, and I hope you all stay safe and have a great and wonderful time, and have a great day. Bye.